So these two spinners look really similar, but they're actually quite different in a lot of ways. Most notably was this Torqbar on the left, cost $140, and it's really hard to get your hands on. This spinner is coming from a company called AMILIFE, but sold under lots of different names. It costs about $2, maybe $3, depending on how you feel about shipping time. You could spend upwards of $10, but probably not much more than that. So I just wanted to run through some differences. Not to sort of explain away why the Torqbar costs $70 more, or 70 times more, but just to show people some of the ways they're different. On the weight side, this Torqbar is solid brass, weighs 57.7 grams, so it has a lot of density there. Again, from it being solid body brass. This AMILIFE, or whatever you want to call it, weighs 32.2 grams, so considerably lighter. On the size side, the cheaper model, the knockoff, whatever you want to call it, is about 70 millimeters long and 29.5 millimeters, the widest point. On the spinning piece, the button we'll call it, it's about 13.6 millimeters wide. Torqbar, 56.7 millimeters long. Let's zero this out just in case. 30 millimeters wide at the widest point, and the button is about 13.7 millimeters. So some notable differences there. Past that, this one, the cheaper model, the AMILIFE, can do a desk spin. It's a pretty big deal for a lot of people. Torqbar cannot. You could spin the button, but with the stock configuration, without the aftermarket taller buttons, it cannot spin on the desk. So people point that out as being a major downside of the Torqbar, which is why those new buttons were released. I think they're available, though they're probably hard to get your hands on. Both of the models have similar aesthetics. Clearly you could see this has like a sort of brass with a patina. This is just, again, I'm guessing it's anodized aluminum. I'm not 100% sure. Both have the keychain holes, which are very cool, so you don't misplace your Torqbar or your pocket spinner or whatever. On the sound side, let's do a quick spin next to the microphone. That was the Torqbar, has a sort of, again, a brassy, deeper sound. Here's the AMILIFE. You could hear the bearing sort of rattling, and you could hear the sort of thinness or the hollowness of the aluminum. It gives you a higher pitch. Speaking of the bearings, this Torqbar bearing has a huge degree of integrity. There's almost no wobble there, so it just gives the spinner a really solid feel. The cheaper one, the AMILIFE, there is a lot of play that lets it spin freely, but it doesn't lend it as the sort of feeling of quality or solidness that some of the higher end models do have. The Torqbar, we'll open it up. And you can see the bearings in there. The bearings are built in, they're sort of pressed into the body. I think there's some Loctite applied, I'm not sure, but not easily replaceable. I'm not sure the bearings they run, but I'm sure it's on Torqbar's website. I think they call it some sort of proprietary bearing. On the AMILIFE, the bearings aren't pressed in. Sort of, it's in a housing, so this is part of the aluminum body or the metal body, and then has this screw piece, and the bearing is just free floating inside there. It doesn't give it the sort of solidness that Torqbar has, but on the flip side, this bearing is extremely easy to replace if you would ever want to upgrade it for any reason. Literally just pop it out, pop a new one in, and screw this down, and you're good. While I'm doing that, the spin times, I've done reviews on the spin time for each of these. This AMILIFE will spin for maybe about 1.5 minutes, give or take. Torqbar will spin for maybe about the same, maybe a little bit longer. It's harder to tell because the AMILIFE you will do a desk spin with, so you get a lot of stability, where the Torqbar you have to do it holding it. So that will decrease the time. I would say the Torqbar, it's smaller and more dense, so it's a lot easier to hold on a single finger and spin. That's, I guess, fun for burning some time or just appreciating the design, but it's not conducive to extremely long spins. Just getting a really scientific number on how long a Torqbar can spin could be a challenge. So I will say overall, the Torqbar can probably spin longer, and then if you go ahead and clean it, it will almost certainly spin longer. The Torqbar, I have found, tends to collect pocket dust pretty easily. And this one is, it will thread back in eventually, but you can see the build quality on it is sort of is what it is. For considering this thing could cost, the AMILIFE will cost like $2 shipped. It's incredible the company's able to do that, but it doesn't leave a lot of space for really high-end bearings or anything like that. So yeah, that is a $140 spinner versus a, call it a $2 spinner. A lot of similarities, a lot of differences. I think you just go with what you could afford and what your preference is. And if you just want a spinner, this one totally does the job. If you kind of want the original type spinner or one with a little bit more cachet, then the Torqbar is really hard to go wrong with. Thanks for watching.